Hi, this is Sue Jackson of the Book by Book blog, and I'm here with another Friday Reads. Still enjoying big book summer. My husband and I are both fully immersed in our big books, and I started a new one this week. So after finishing Cloud Cuckoo Land, and I'm sorry for the number of times that I've said Cloud Cuckoo Atlas instead. Clearly, my brain keeps getting it mixed up with Cloud Atlas. But I did finish Cloud Cuckoo Land and absolutely loved it. Oh, it was a great ending. The way all the different stories pulled together, some in ways that I had kind of seen coming, and others that were a complete surprise. It was a great ending, and I really enjoyed it. And so I moved on to my goal is to fit in 2 more big books before the end of the Big Book Summer Challenge, which is September 2nd this year. Labor Day is pretty early. And these are the ones left on my stack. Now, I've been holding trust for the end because I'm hoping to buddy read it with a friend. Both White Teeth and Empire Falls are shorter books in the 400s, I think. But I ultimately chose The Ferryman by Justin Cronin, based on my husband's recommendation. I gave this to him last year for Father's Day. He read it and loved it. We both loved, you can see it right up here, the Passage trilogy. I also loved another completely different book by Justin Cronin, The Summer Guest, not science fiction at all. And this is a bigger book at about 540 pages, bigger than my other choices, but my husband said it reads really fast. And it's also a hardcover, so, the font is pretty large. So that's the one I went with, and I'm so glad I did. I am absolutely loving it. Cronin is just so talented at storytelling. It is science fiction like the Passage trilogy was, but completely different. And this is this kind of science fiction I like best, which is the kind that basically takes place in our own world. It's not like aliens and spaceships and things like that. In this case, this is presumably somewhat into the future from where we are today, but it is Earth and it is real people. And there are references to the fact that there's been some kind of crisis, some kind of apocalyptic event on the globe. But this story takes place on a very isolated island called Prospera, where they, and I don't know who they is, but they've basically created the perfect world. Health, happiness, peace, sort of a utopia. So it is a little into the future, that's where the science fiction comes in. For instance, all citizens of Prospera have their health continually monitored. They've got this kind of, in their forearm, they've got this like chip and then a monitor that they can hook up to it that gives them a readout. But what's really unique about this world on Prospera is that people don't die of old age or disease. As someone begins to age, their health monitor lets them know that they are declining. And as they decline, at some point, they choose to retire. And you're not allowed to get to 10% or below without retiring. So it's not always voluntary. And so what retire means is you board a ferry, you leave the island of Prospera. The ferry goes to another nearby island called the Nursery. And there isn't any detail yet in how this happens, but you are basically recycled. And eventually you will come back to Prospera, as a 16-year-old new life with no memories of your past life or lives and start over. So there's no one under 16 on the island. There's no one old and suffering from illness or disease or old age. So that's the basic premise. The ferryman of the title is the title character. His name is Proctor. We meet him first as a new iterant, just coming off the ferry from the nursery at 16. We meet his adoptive parents, who are called guardians. Proctor grows up, goes to school, college, decides to become a ferryman, which means when someone is ready to retire, or even not ready, he is the person that goes and meets them, and he's not the only one. There are many of them. He goes and meets the person, guides them through this last stage, and helps them board the ferry. And what happens here, very early in the story, Proctor is called to accompany his own father, his guardian, to the ferry. And that just begins a whole chain of events that start to open Proctor's eyes to this world that they live in. That there are flaws to it, that it's not all as perfect as it seems. It's fabulous. It's thoughtful and thought-provoking. As usual with Cronin, you just get so invested in the characters. The storytelling, as I said, is just amazing. My husband was right. It is such a gripping novel. I've been letting you know each week as I've been recovering from COVID, which is a big deal when you have the kind of immune disorder I have. This is my 5th week now. I was doing better. I had a few rough days this week, and I think it's mostly because I've been staying up too late reading. And then I can't sleep in the morning, and yeah. So I'm trying to correct that and be a little more aware of my health limits. But that's how good this is. I just don't want to put it down once I start reading. So I'm about 200 or so pages in. I am loving it. The Ferryman by Justin Cronin. On audio, I ended up just deciding, I finished The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, and I ended up deciding to just jump right into the sequel, which will be released on September 10th. I've got the audio advance copy, and when I noticed it was actually a big book, I thought, why not? Let's just jump right into it. So I did take a few days off to catch up on some podcasts, but then this is the book I chose. The sequel is called Somewhere Beyond the Sea, and every time I say that title, think that title, or hear that title, I end up singing this song to myself for days. So yeah, it has been stuck in my head for a long time. But it's a delightful book, and it's a delightful song. So this is a sequel to The House in the Cerulean Sea. It picks up, I just realized I don't want to spoil anything about The House in the Cerulean Sea. It picks off where that ended. And the first chapter is actually a bit of a prequel, showing you when Arthur first returned to the island and went back to that house, and how he ended up developing what you see in The House in the Cerulean Sea. And then it jumps forward in time, as I said, to right after the Cerulean Sea ended. It is excellent again. One thing I don't know if I mentioned when I was talking about The House in the Cerulean Sea on previous Friday Reads is the sense of humor. It's got a great sense of humor. Just a delightful book, full of hope and joy, uplifting. So I'm very much enjoying that. I won't write my official review on my blog until it is released September 10th. but I'm happy to tell you about it here because it is out soon. So if you were a fan of The House in the Cerulean Sea, you will definitely want to read Somewhere Beyond the Sea. And just very quickly, because I'm going to be late for my haircut appointment, my husband just started another big book, Dreamcatcher by Stephen King. So this was hilarious because, he was saying there's only 3 weeks left of Big Book Summer, and he's got a whole group of books he set aside for this summer. And he picked up every single one of those and read the synopsis and put it down again. And, he was looking for something he could finish by September 2nd, the end of Big Book Summer. And then he ended up going over to our bookcase of books that we inherited from my dad, which is really special to both of us. My dad was an avid reader. I loved picking out books for him. I loved talking about books with him. It's something we both really miss. So we love having his books. This is what we inherited, was his collection of Stephen King and Dean Koontz books. And my husband's read most of the Stephen Kings, but he realized he hadn't yet read Dreamcatchers. So instead of picking a reasonable big book that he could definitely finish in 3 weeks, he picked this 613-page brick. But it is Stephen King. He's always a fast read, and I'm sure my husband will enjoy this. So that's what we're reading this weekend. Please let me know in the comments down below, what are you reading?